Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
How are you this morning?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
All right. I see you're the early bird today.
Oh, yes, of course. I wanted to make sure everything was set up and if there's any last minute things that we needed to do.
Okay.
Uh, you have access to the slide deck, right? Or do you want me to present that?
I was looking at you doing that, and
Perfect.
here, let me. Now you're a panelist, okay? So inshallah, you should be displayed, and the other. I'm assuming the moderators and the speakers. So that's at least, and then Kamal. So that's about 8. I'm counting 8. I don't have to. I mean, I can kill my video as it's not necessary. All of, and then I did look at the slides that you did last night. Alhamdulillah, everything's great. Catching the right date, that's a good thing. But other than that, I think it's pretty much. Now, who's going to, I'm assuming Kamal is going to introduce the panelists as well. The panelists and the speakers, is that your understanding? Oh, I can't hear you. Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
I believe he will be introducing the moderators. I did put that I could introduce the speakers if he wanted, but when he jumps on the call today, before we start, I was going to just ask him if he wanted to do both. And then after he presents them, I will go ahead and just kind of say that now we will have Dr. Musa present on mental health, and then I will just go into her slide. So depending on what he wants.
Okay. All right. So then basically, if we could do it this way, then we'll just, can you put up the slides, and then we'll just, because all I do is want to go through all 3 of the first 3, and there's some welcoming remarks to the audience, go through that, and then it kind of and then I would switch it over to Dr. Kamal, whether he wants to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bam. I just want to make sure it's working good for you, that you can, and then, because what we usually do is we'll have this one as people enter. So when they see this is the initial screen that they would see. So they understand what, what they're going to look at. I mean, what to confirm where they're at.
Perfect.
And then I would, at 11 a.m. or a little bit after, depending on how I see people clicking in, I may wait a couple minutes and then begin, and welcoming people to to our webinar series. And then today's topic being mental health, stress, and spiritual management during Ramadan. And that and then you guys will take it over. Then I would introduce, and I said at this point in time, I would like to introduce the chairman of our joint task force, who spearheading the development of these webinars, Dr. Kamal El Darwi, and then he would take it over from there. Now, I don't know if he wants to. See, this is what hopefully he'll join on, whether or not he wants to, be on the video, or he will just do it behind, like I intend to just do it behind the screen, with this.
Your name.
Yeah, I don't even need to not name. I'll just introduce myself, but just showing that, and then slip into the next slide, explaining to them the etiquettes that we would ask them to observe during the meeting. Some of them won't have that ability to turn on the video, but it's just standard some rules that we've cultivated, developed since we've been doing these things. Okay. And then just disclaimers that don't try to rely on us as if it was a medical consultation. Come on, go see a real doctor. I'm a real doctor, but you know what I mean. This is not intended to be a person specific. It's to provide you an outline of information to best assist you in making decisions about your mental health and spiritual well-being.
Perfect. And then we'll have Sister Hiba Abbas, who's going to be monitoring the chat box for the queue. She's going to be monitoring it during the session just to see if any questions come in. And then she's going to be moderating the Q&A session just to each presenter who it is pertaining to.
And who that's who is Hiba?
Hiba Abbas, yeah, she should be
Okay.
on. I'll let her know to join, but she was going to be joining.
Right, because I
very
just
soon.
want to make sure, get all those that are actually participating, get them on as panelists, so there won't be any issue. Because when you have a large number of people, it's hard to find someone, particularly if I'm looking for a telephone number. You know, it does not work well.
Oh, okay. She said she's on right now.
Oh, okay, that must mean she's. Oh, there's a couple people. All right, let me do that. All right.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Diab.
Walaikum assalam.
So, your topic is timely, sisters. I think there's a lot of stress going on in the community right now. And I think I'm managing it well because I've been in the house a month and my wife hasn't thrown me out yet. So
That's good.
So, Hiba, I understand that basically you're going to lead the Q&A session. So, however you want to transition, you will have access. I mean, as a panelist, each of you have access to the video display as well as the audio portion of the webinar to chime in. Like I said,
perfect.
my role will be strictly here to introduce everybody from the beginning and then fade into the back. All right, let me just take this call. I'm sorry.
Okay, sounds good.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
What time is
11. We got the panelists. Some of the panelists are already on.
Javeri, were you able to ask him about the little blurb I put together?
Not yet. He
Okay.
was running me through just kind of like the etiquette and just kind of the flow of things. And then that's when I I did ask him about the Q&A, and then that's when he added you. So
okay, yeah, I'll ask him.
I'll ask him. Perfect. And then for the Q&A, he said that you'll have access to that. So we just have to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
Want it in the chat box or the Q&A box?
I believe it's the chat box from this slide, but we can ask him just so when we tell.
Just because when I first entered in, I wasn't able to see the Q&A box, so I'm just gonna leave it as a chat box.
I think where is the? Okay, here's the chat box. Okay, I see it.
Well, I can try to text you the thing.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, if you just put the link, I'll reply right now.
Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
And brother Abdullah, I have a quick question for you. So I have like a little blurb that I put together, just like a, kind of summarizing what the second slide says, like, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. And I also said that the webinar is going to be recorded and available on the website. Is it okay if I put that in the chat box when the session starts?
Oh yeah. I mean, at this point in time, you have control over that. Okay. If you think it needs to be a slide that you could send to Javeria that she could put in the thing, or if you just think the chat box is sufficient, fine.
I think the chat box should be sufficient, but thank you.
All right. All right. And then who else are we waiting on besides Dr. Kamal?
Dr. Iman Musa and Sheikh Tariq.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I may need you guys' help to, if I can't identify them, if they come in as a telephone number, just who they are.
Dr. Musa just joined. She's in the attendees.
Who did?
Dr. Iman Musa.
Oh, okay, all right. And then so just as Kamal and Imam Tariq Musla.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.
Let me just test out my video here. Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
What's the order of the talks?
Sure. So it's going to be Dr. Musa, and then you, Dr. Diaby, you'll be following Dr. Musa, and then finally it'll be Dr. Sheikh Tariq.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
How are you guys doing?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, doing well.
Dr. Diab, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyyakum.
So Sister Hibba, Sister Javiria, you are controlling the screen, am I right? So you're gonna be advancing the slides after
Yes.
after Brother Mitchell introduces
You.
he basically introduced the topic and then will mention the disclaimer and will introduce me, and then I will introduce the rest of the speakers and the moderators.
Perfect. Do you want me to swap the order? Do you want the speakers slide first or the moderators? I could do that really fast.
Let's have the speakers first.
Okay,
please.
perfect. I will change that right now. Okay, and then yeah, after you introduce the moderators, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Musa, and then Dr. Musa will present, and then I'll thank her, and then I'll introduce Dr. Diab, and then once she's done, I will say thank you, and then Sheikh Tariq, and then resources, and I'll do a quick run through of the resources page, and then during that time, Hiba will put the link for the repository document in the chat box, and then I'll also kind of mention that they will be available on CIOGC's website.
You know, do you want to do that like after each speaker? You want to introduce the speaker, or just let's introduce all of them at once?
We could do all of them at once.
Okay.
And then I can just, because I do have like the pictures, so then this will just be Dr. Musa's cue, and then I can just thank her, and then I'll just go into Dr. Diab's slide, and then just thank her at the end, if that's okay. Or if you just want the easy flow of just kind of them going after the other, that whichever you prefer.
Sheikh Tariq just joined as well.
All right, I'll get ready to add him right now.
Jazakallah.
Thank you.
I think I had to rejoin.
Who?
That's Dr. El-Darawi.
Well, I see you on the screen as a panelist right now. Can you can't talk, or?
I can't, you cannot hear me? I can talk.
I can hear you. I
For
think
a while, I was kicked out. I don't know, is it my Wi-Fi or, you know how?
it must be maybe your connection, because you were, admitted as a panelist, and I'm trying to think. I think we have everybody here now. And that, as everybody, just to confirm, everybody's on self-mute. It's not a question about you can't. I'm looking at everybody says unmute.
Yes, I know that I'm on mute right now.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make sure before we have to try to hunt for a technical solution.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Tariq. Wanted to go ahead and welcome him.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How you guys doing? How's everyone doing?
Alhamdulillah, doing well. Thank you for asking.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you doing, Sheikh Tariq?
Wonderful, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan. I'm excited about the program and looking forward to it, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah.
How are things in San Francisco?
They're great.
Good.
Sheikh Tariq, Dr. Iman, how are you doing, guys?
Alhamdulillah, doing well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, everything is great. We're just
thank you so much for agreeing to do this webinar.
Of course, happy to join.
Just for your minute, what our experience has been, people start joining right at 11. So I like to wait about 4 minutes or 5 minutes max to allow people to get in, okay? Because I'm just watching the numbers are increasing as we're getting close to the 11 o'clock hour.
Sounds good. Thank you for letting us know.
Okay.
Thinking about this, I think it's kind of early on a Sunday in Ramadan. Yeah.
Well, it's good for their health today.
Yeah, inshallah.
Heba, do you want to ask Dr. El-Darawi about the community intake survey?
Yes, Dr. El-Darawi, at the end, do you want me to bring up the community intake survey and I can send the link? I think it's one of the last slides.
You could do that.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that, inshallah.
And then Kamal, after you make your final remarks, Rashad is now joined, and inshallah he'll make some last closing remarks. Okay.
Yeah, we planned for that. That's good.
Yeah. If by any chance we have any technical difficulties, we'll just fill in for what his points are. But because sometimes he's experienced some problems with his the service checking in.
And if there is any technical difficulty from my part, Sister Javiria or Hiba can go ahead and introduce the speakers and move on. So please do not wait.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Your sound is kind of echoing a little bit.
Okay. I will mute myself. And I was saying that we should have given Kamal the census background, COGC census background.
Oh.
He has a really nice sunset view in his bag. So
I'm sorry, maybe you guys sent it. I did not notice. I'm not that tech savvy like you, so I just found this by default on the sorry.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
So I agree what Dr. Kamal was saying. Maybe 11 a.m. is too early in Ramadan, especially on the weekends.
We're gonna learn from this for future sessions. So.
Yeah. That's true. Well, alhamdulillah, this is going to be recorded and shared, so we'll just send it over to everybody.
All right. Inshallah, Javiria, in about another minute, I would ask you to, we'll begin the webinar and welcome our guests and go from that particular point. All right.
Okay, inshallah. Yep.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome this morning to CIOGC's latest webinar entitled Mental Health, Stress, and Spiritual Management during Ramadan. This is another in a series of webinars we have produced to help us as a community best address the issues that we confront during this COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate your participation and make available to you the chat device to ask questions. Can you move to the next slide, please? I just want to share with you some of the guidelines that I hope you will follow in to make this a successful experience for all of us. Most of you should be muted, but if by chance you have audio or video capabilities, please mute them so that doesn't affect the bandwidth of the transmission and will not interfere with the moderators or the speaker's presentation. We also ask that you would submit any questions you may have in the chat feature of the webinar. These questions will be monitored by our panelists, and at the question and answer period, they will be posed to our speakers. And then finally, I would ask that you would refrain from chatting about the questions or comments, because we would like everyone's attention to be focused in on our speakers and our panelists, so that we all may derive the most benefit from our gathering here today. So with those preliminary remarks, I would like to now turn the program over to the chairman of the CIG Joint Task Force that is sponsoring this. But as I've been reminded, I forgot to mention, there is certain things we should share with you, that this is a webinar designed to give you general information. It's not intended to constitute medical advice. It's for you, general information to help guide you in making those personal health decisions about your particular well-being. And finally, as a nonprofit organization, we are not permitted and do not endorse the panelists or the speakers. The retention of a physician, psychologist, or licensed therapist is your personal decision and should be made in consultation with your current medical providers. So with that caveat, I will once again turn the program over to Dr. Kamal Eldawi, chairperson of the Joint Task Force. Dr. Kamal.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I would like to thank our panelists, our speakers, for agreeing to do this, for their generosity and willingness to step up. I also want to thank all of you for joining this webinar. It's a continuation of a series of webinars we have been conducting with CIUGC COVID-19 Task Force. With us today, we have three esteemed panelists. I would like to introduce them first, and then I will introduce the moderators. We have Dr. Iman Musa, who is a licensed clinical psychologist at the Khalil Center, where she provides a spiritually integrated psychotherapy to adults, families, and children. She is on the National Board of the Muslim Women's Professional Network and is an adjunct faculty member at the College of Lake County. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Iman Musa. With us today is also Dr. Rand Diab, who is a physician who practices ophthalmology in Northwest Indiana and resides in Burridge with her husband and 3 children. She's an organizer of the Mecca Convert Support Group and teaches a Convert Qur'an class. She is also a founder and board member of Carriers of Light School in Wheaton. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Randia. Last but not least, we also have our beloved Sheikh Tariq Musleh, who is a graduate from the prestigious Medina University, where he attained his associate degree in Arabic and bachelor degree from the College of Sharia. He has served youth Muslims for many years as a coordinator and also served as the youth director for the Islamic Center of Naperville in Chicago, and is currently the youth director and assistant imam of Mecca Center in Willowbrook, Illinois, starting in July 2017. We also have 2 wonderful moderators who helped put this webinar together. We have Sister Javiria Ali Tai. She has an MPH in public health, and she is a public health professional with 7 years of combined education and training, receiving her master's in public health with a concentration in community health practice. from DePaul University. So basically, this is her area of expertise. During her training, she conducted mosquito surveillance tracking and controlling the spread of West Nile virus with the City of Chicago's Health Department. She currently works for a medical association that supports anesthesiologists and volunteering with CIOGC COVID-19 task force. She is co-leading the health aspects of the COVID-19 task force. Thank you, Sister Javiria. We also have Sister Hiba Abbas, who is a clinical research nurse at Access Community Health Network and is a doctor of nursing practice candidate at the University of Illinois at Chicago. She currently assists with the CIGC, ICNA Relief, PPS COVID-19 Health Line as the telehealth RN and volunteers with the CIGC COVID-19 Task Force. With that, I would like to turn the mic to Sister Javiria, who will walk us for today's webinar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First, we will have Dr. Iman Musa presenting. Following her will be Dr. Diab. And then following her, we will have Sheikh Tariq. And then we will go into the Q&A session, inshallah. So go ahead, Dr. Iman.
Great, thank you so much. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Thank you to the organizers, CIOGC, for hosting this important conversation. So I'm just going to jump right in. A lot of times when we talk about mental and emotional wellness, I like to first talk about what that is not. And a lot of times there is a myth that even during difficulties, even during hard times, we should be feeling happy all the time. We should be feeling calm all the time. And I can say just from the clients that I work with in my practice, but also from my own personal experience, this is a very difficult and challenging time that we're going through right now. I know for myself and all of us panelists, I don't want to speak for everyone, but we're here to help, but that's not to say that we aren't also experiencing hardship and difficulties and all of the emotions that come with this change. And so first I want to say, when we talk about mental health, it doesn't mean avoiding or running from these difficult experiences that we might be feeling from our emotions. And so my first point there about running from our negative emotions, I put that in quotes because there's really no emotions that are negative. It's really about how we cope with them. And so, for example, a lot of us are feeling anxiety right now, worrying about the uncertainty of the future. However, anxiety and stress, that can be healthy for us too, because it helps us to plan and prepare for the future. Or even feeling sadness about the losses our community is experiencing, about the hardships that the whole world is going through right now. So no one is trying to say that this is not a loss or not something to feel sad about. But we want to frame today's conversation around, what can we still do? Acknowledging that this is difficult, acknowledging that, many of us have never faced a Ramadan like this before, where our masjid doors are closed, where we can't get together physically with our families and our communities. And so I wanted to just start by saying all these feelings are natural, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created emotions for us to inform us, to guide us to take action. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start. Next slide, please. So when we look to our deen, when we look to the Qur'an about what Allah tells us about hardship, we know that there will be difficult trials and times in our lives. And Allah tells us, do not lose hope, do not despair. Surely you will be victorious if you are believers. Many of these verses we're all so familiar with, that Allah tells us, seek help through patience and prayer, and that Allah is with the patient. And finally, that with every hardship comes ease. And what I take from these verses is that again, it's not that we won't be tested, but it's about how we respond to these trials. We can acknowledge that we're scared. We can acknowledge that we're sad. But how do we maintain hope? How do we not resign to some of these difficulties that we're going through and kind of say, well, Ramadan is ruined now because the masjid is closed, or things just aren't going to get better. There's nothing that I could do. This is the sort of despair and the sort of hopelessness that we want to try to protect ourselves from. And so if you go to the next slide, please, I'll talk about the brief remarks that I want to make today. And so from even a psychological perspective, of course, we know that stressful events can threaten our mental health. They can make us feel a lot of distress. Sometimes we may not feel like ourselves. Some of us may even be feeling physically different than usual because our emotional health and our physical health are quite connected. So you may find yourself feeling more tired. You may find yourself having difficulty concentrating. You may find yourself having difficulty with sleep. And especially with Ramadan, our sleep and our eating and all of that changes too. So you may notice yourself just not really feeling like yourself. So we want to talk about some ways to protect our mental health and our overall wellness. And so that top point there, it's really about how we respond. There's ways that we can respond and cope to take care of ourselves. And it's okay, and it's actually so important to take these extra steps to care for our mental, emotional, and spiritual health during this time. So the first point I'm going to talk about is focusing on what's in our control. Again, not fighting against what's already happened. So acknowledging, I am sad that the masjid is closed. I am sad that I can't see my family right now. But rather than just saying, well, there's nothing I can do, let's ask ourselves, what can I still do to make the most of this situation? How can I create some meaning from this situation? What might this mean for me? Is there strength I can get from this? Is there blessings I can find in this? And then finally, maintaining social connection. We are physically distancing, but we don't want to socially distance ourselves. Next slide, please. All right, so some sort of tips or steps you can take. I really like to think about, again, what's still in my control right now? Well, my daily structure and daily routine is still in my control. I know everyone is always talking about creating a daily structure and routine. But the reason that we do this is in a situation like the pandemic, so many things feel out of our hands. There's all of these restrictions we have to follow. People are getting sick. It can be very scary. But we are creatures of habit. We like some predictability in our lives and in our routines. And so as much as you can, create some daily structure for yourself. This might look like, even if you're working from home and you don't necessarily have to get dressed every day, to start your day by taking a shower, by putting on a new outfit, even if it's another pajama or even if it's another comfortable outfit, to have that routine for yourself to get started. I know for myself also, it's really important to have, if you can, a space in your home where you work. This is the designated workspace. This is where I rest. This is where I pray. And I know Dr. Rand is going to talk a lot more about, creating that space in your home. Other things with routine, I know for myself, after work, I try to get outside each day. I try to do a little bit of walking each day. And just that predictability that I know I have something to do, I have a plan, that can really help with feelings of anxiety and feelings of that loss of sense of control. When it comes to Ramadan, commit to meaningful, realistic goals for the month. I know that for Ramadan, and I myself feel this too, alhamdulillah, it's one of the blessings of Ramadan. We feel so motivated, so excited to set all of these goals and do all of these, attain all of these spiritual goals. But sometimes we can overwhelm ourselves a little bit. And so I always recommend, think about what's realistic to you. Choose something meaningful to you to focus on and start from there. So maybe you're focusing on generosity, and you want to think about what is a kind deed I can do for my family every day, or what is some kind of charity I can give every day, and focusing on that. The next point, focus on the process, not the outcome. So what I mean by that is we often get focused on, I want to read this much Qur'an every day. I want to finish the Qur'an this many times. And though it's good to be specific in your goals, at the same time, we don't want to get into all or nothing thinking where I didn't reach my Qur'an goal today, so I failed. Focus on the process. And even if you're not getting to those markers that you set, you're reading Qur'an more. What are you learning from it? How is it changing you? So really focus on the process and be kind with yourself, because Islam is a religion of balance. And so there are times when we're going to feel motivated. There are times when we're going to feel fatigued. There are times when we're going to make mistakes. So be kind to yourself. And if you don't reach your goals in that first week or in the first 10 days that you set, that's okay. Set time to reflect. Think about how you can move forward. And remember, again, that nobody's expected to be perfect. And the last point is make time for quiet reflection daily. I really recommend using a journal. If you can journal daily, what is something I was grateful for today? What are the goals that I met today? What did I not meet? And what is kind of my plan moving forward? Next slide, please. And I'm going to end today with just some ideas for maintaining social connection. This is a time for us to we want to feel connected to our community, and there are still ways to do that. So I'm a big proponent of making lists. Think about friends and family members, not just the ones that you're used to seeing all the time, but maybe some who you haven't connected with for a long time. Make a list of people you want to reach out to and try to set a phone call, set a video chat to reconnect with some people or family members that you haven't. Also get creative with the ways in which you connect. I know many of us are burned out a little bit from video calls and Zoom chats and Facebook group chats or whatever it might be. But think about, especially using Ramadan, there's so many excellent web lecture series going on right now. Get with a Ramadan buddy or a group and commit to watching the series together as a group, everyone logging in their own spaces. Connect with others for a daily activity like a walk. Maybe you all, text each other when you go outside, or maybe you talk as you're getting that physical exercise. So use that social accountability to connect over things that are important spiritually, but then other aspects of your day. Perhaps for iftar, we can't have our iftar get-togethers, but cook and eat a meal together on video chat, follow a recipe together. All these things that would bring us together in that social aspect of Ramadan, ways that we can still stay connected. And then finally, just another thing that we might not think to do every day, sending letters and cards and even gifts to family and friends is another great way to connect, another great way to show, to practice generosity and kindness. And so these are just a few ideas that I wanted to share. And I'll go ahead and wrap my comments up there. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah, Dr. Musa, for that insightful presentation. Next, we'll have Dr. Diab.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I really want to thank everyone for being here. I know there's tons of stuff going on online, and I see a bunch of familiar names on the participant list. So thank you all for joining us. So I really appreciate everything that Dr. Musa said. We really want to try to have a positive attitude. I know a lot of people are so disappointed going into this Ramadan, but I want to focus on silver linings. So I know that there's hardship and I don't want to discount that, but I am going to try to talk about some of the silver linings and try to focus on some of those, inshallah. So one of the things going into this Ramadan, I remember last year in Ramadan, many of us who have teens or college students were very stressed because we were saying, oh, they're going to have their finals right in Ramadan. It's going to be so hard for them. The days are so long. And subhanAllah, now they're all home and they're doing remote learning. A lot of their classes are pass fail and they are so much less stressed than they would have been. Their MCATs and their DATs and their SATs and ACTs and everything is canceled. So as much as that's challenging, there is also some khair in that, inshallah. Also, for a lot of us, we're working a lot less than we normally would. I know I am. Last Ramadan, I was up at 7 a.m. getting the kids off to school and then going straight to work. And it was really, really hard getting no sleep. So I'm working a lot less right now as a physician. Most of our elective surgeries, my elective surgeries are all canceled, and most of my clinics are canceled. So I'm finding kind of a blessing in that, alhamdulillah, despite the hardships in many other ways. Also, I think there are some benefits this year to the people who can't fast. So there are people who due to illness can't fast, or oftentimes women for various reasons can't fast or can't even pray. And so they often feel left out at all the iftar parties and at the not being able to go to Taraweeh and things like that. So this does kind of level the playing field a little bit. And then the other thing I've been reflecting on is the fact that we often talk about going into Ramadan as a time when we get to feel how the poor people or the less fortunate people feel. Well, this year, a lot of us are lamenting, I don't get to see my family, I don't get to go to iftar gatherings. Well, maybe we're tasting a little bit about how converts feel during Ramadan. And I think we should really take that out of this Ramadan and keep that in mind for the future. And even during this month, if you know converts, look out for them, touch base with them, drop off some food for them, things like that. So this is something that we often take for granted, that many of us who are born Muslims have a lot of family and friends who are Muslim, and we look forward to the social aspects of Ramadan. But for many converts, it's very isolating. On the flip side of that, they have some additional challenges this year because many of them do go to the iftars at the masajid, and now that they don't have those, they're missing out. But I think that what this Ramadan can make many of us realize is that we really need to focus on turning inward and thinking about some of the personal aspects of Ramadan. So now that we can't rely on the imam to lead the Taraweeh prayers, many of us are scrambling to figure out how can we pray Taraweeh at home. Now, if you've ever been a mom with young kids, you've already got that kind of figured out, because I prayed Taraweeh at home for most of my years. But for a lot of people, that's very challenging. They are realizing that they don't really know enough Qur'an to lead prayer, and the thing is, subhanAllah, I think this is a great lesson for us to realize that we oftentimes focus on the public work that people in our community do. So we think about the people that are in the media or in social media or influencers or activists or published authors or people that are out there and they're doing work that everybody can see. But I really want us to focus on the importance of the private work as well. I know many people who no one has ever heard of, but they are at home doing things that are helping our communities in a different way. For example, I know a lot of women who focus on memorizing the Qur'an. I have a friend who's at home with her young children, and she is learning the Ashir Qira'at of the Qur'an. When we have to have a gathering, an Islamic gathering, let's say for women, or even now when people need to pray Taraweeh at home, these are the people that our communities are going to be relying on, the people that no one ever noticed before, but they have a lot of knowledge of Islam. They know the knowledge of how to lead prayer. What happens when you're the imam? What happens if you forget something, to do something, you do something incorrectly in Salah? What happens if you're following and the imam does something incorrectly, or you make a mistake? These are things that now many of us are having to figure out because we're doing some of these things at home with our families. So I really want us to take a lesson from this and say that let's not discount the significance of that private work that people do, that study at home, the fact that some people sit home and they read the seerah and they study it, or they take classes online to learn about Islam. That's what many of us can now turn some of our attention to during Ramadan. And I think it can be sort of a springboard for us for the rest of the year, that we use Ramadan. I often talk about using Ramadan as a training camp for ourselves for how we want to live as Muslims. And this year we can use that as a launch pad to say, I'm realizing that I don't really know, these different areas of my deen very well, and I want to focus on learning them. And that can be so enriching, and it can feel so good, and nobody else has to know what you're doing. It doesn't have to be publicized in any way. And there's a lot of value of doing that just between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one of the things I think we can really focus on is setting goals for personal growth. And also thinking about how, since we can't be in the masjid, how can we make our homes our masajid? So what I recommend doing is finding a room, maybe a corner of a room, maybe an area in your home where you can have a private worship corner. So you'll have things that you like in that area. So you'll have a prayer rug that maybe is special to you in some way. Maybe something good scented, like a scented candle or atar or incense or something that you keep in that area to keep it smelling nice. For us as women, and even for the men, like we have special prayer clothes. Sometimes people have a special galabiya or abaya or something that they wear when you pray, and you keep it clean and ironed. And it's so exciting because you bring it out maybe special for Ramadan, or even if it's not just for Ramadan, but you keep it clean and sort of good scented, and you're looking forward to wearing it. In that corner, you can have obviously a mushaf if you're reading Qur'an. You would have some different dua books, maybe as Dr. Musa mentioned, a journal, because sometimes you're going to have thoughts and reflections that you want to make a note of. SubhanAllah, oftentimes when we're fasting or when we're sort of away from the dunya and we're maybe doing more worship, dhikr, Qur'an, we have some insights that we just never had before. Like an idea may pop in your head that you've just never reflected on before. And that reflection and that pondering, that's an important part of our worship. So it's not just the ritual worship. There's also just reflecting. So have something where you can write some things down as they come in your head. Maybe you have dhikr beads, maybe you have, different, as I said, different dua booklets. Sometimes we have those and we just never get a chance to really use them. So I've compiled a list also of some books that people can refer to for Islamic knowledge, Sira books, or different books about spirituality, building a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things like that. So I think that's going to be shared when the information about this is shared, inshallah, so people can reference that as well. I also want to emphasize that even for people who can't fast or who can't pray or can't read Qur'an, there's so much spiritual benefit that you can get in Ramadan. So just making dhikr, for example, can really elevate you and purify you and connect you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you recite the different adhkar, and if you reflect on their meanings, that will make a big impact for you. And then dua. Dua is so important. Oftentimes we neglect it, and I really recommend making a dua list that you can compile even from now and continue to add to it throughout the month, so that at those critical moments when dua is mustajab, when it's answered, like at the time of breaking your fast or at the time after the Fuddled Prayers, etc., you have that ready to go. Because a lot of times at the moment when we're breaking our fast, it's a lot of hustle and bustle. People want to eat, and there's, if you're with a family, if you're not home alone, there's a lot going on. But you may be so hungry and distracted that you can't even think of those du'as that you so badly wanted to make at this moment. So have that list ready, and it's great to share that idea with family, or if you have children, so that they can get in that habit, that they pause, have their du'as ready, and really do them at that moment. So you can keep adding to that list. And that process of making your du'a list, it's a process in itself. It is an educational process, because you start to realize what's really on your mind. Like, what are my priorities? What are the things that worry me? What are the things that concern me? All of these things start to come to you when you start to write them in your dua. It's almost like a form of journaling and reflection. So I think there's a lot of benefit just in compiling the list. And then as we start to learn to make dua more vigorously, and we start to feel more connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we develop a relationship with him. We feel like we're talking to him. We feel like we're saying, it's almost like it's like therapy. It's therapeutic. You're sitting there and you're saying, Ya Allah, these are all the things I'm worried about. I know I don't have control over these things. Like for example, me, I have teenage children. Like, there's so much to worry about raising teens in this world. And I cannot control a lot of that, So I sit there and I just tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that. And please help my children with this, and please help me with that. And I say, I know that I'm flawed in all these ways and I've made all these mistakes, but please help me, Ya Allah, help me, make me better. And I feel so much better after that. I feel like I have power now. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most powerful. So when we ask him, now we've strengthened ourselves, and now I feel better. I feel like, yes, I acknowledge I'm imperfect and I make mistakes, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiving. So we always have to have that husn al-dhan, that good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like Dr. Musa said, don't like get negative with yourself. Like don't say I set these goals and then I didn't meet them and now I feel bad about myself. Remember to have a positive opinion of Allah. He's the most generous. So that, I think, that view. And so sometimes we get so stress paralyzed because we like make our Ramadan goals. I mean, this happens to me. Like I go into Ramadan and I'm like, oh my God, I have to do everything perfectly. Like I can't make a mistake. I can't waste any time. I have to just, do all of this ibadah. And I actually start to feel really stressed by that. And so I think instead we have to say, as Dr. Musa said, like, what do I want to get out of this month? How do I want to emerge as a different person? And so we know that when we go into Ramadan, we know the hadith about how the gates of paradise are open and the devils are chained. And so we can use this time as a great time of self-assessment. So now I get to see my true self, my true character. What are the areas that I really need to work on? So it's not just about praying and reading Qur'an. There's also character building in Ramadan, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us that some people get nothing out of their fasting except hunger and thirst. We don't want to be of those people, inshallah. So what we want to get out of it is some type of character building where, we, like I notice in myself, for example, like, sometimes I kind of like make these annoying negative remarks at my family members, or like, and I'm thinking like, or I get impatient with them, or, my mood fluctuates. And so I'm just thinking like all these different aspects of myself that I want to try to improve and grow, not in a negative way. Like I'm not sitting there beating myself up, giving myself grace, but I can recognize that I have these qualities that I want to use this opportunity to focus on developing and improving, inshallah. So even if you can't fast, and even if you can't pray, and even if you can't read Qur'an, you can definitely work on character building. And you can definitely work on helping others. There are many people in the community that may need help in different ways. And even though we can't see people face to face, there are still creative ways of dropping things off for other people, calling to check in on them. Oftentimes just getting a phone call from another Muslim to check in with you is very kind. And don't forget that you can sit quietly in secret and make dua for people. And that will help them so much. And so even though maybe you can't do some of the community service you could do before, you could make dua for others. Obviously, we can give charity online. I mean, that's always been available. And that's also really valuable. But there are so many different ways to give charity and to give sadaqah. A smile is a sadaqah. And so walk around your house smiling at everyone. See how that's going to improve the mood of the household. So I feel like, there are still so many silver linings in this Ramadan. There's so much good that we can do. We don't need to get let ourselves get overwhelmed. We just want to kind of, look at the big picture, be in the present moment. So we're in this moment today. What can I do today to make this day good? I'm not thinking about what happened yesterday, and I'm not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm just thinking about this present moment. How can I be here for, let's say you're in a family, like I'm in a family, like I have 4 other family members living with me. So I think about what can I do to be in service of my family today? How can I do that with a smile on my face? How can I do it without resentment? Like last night, after I've been cooking and after all the thought and the cleaning, whatever, I was like, look, you guys, I'm not going to be a martyr. Like, I don't want to have resentment. When we're done with everything, you all need to chip in with the cleaning. You can't all just say, oh, it's after I ate and I'm tired. We're all tired. So, trying to do it without resentment. Sometimes that means speaking up for yourself and kindly expressing your needs and saying, look, I need everyone to get off the couch now and help us get this place cleaned up. So thinking about how you can serve others, and you can be very creative in that, inshallah. And I want to close with a hadith that many of us already know, but every hadith is so amazing, and we should never discount them and say, I've already heard this hadith, I already know it. You can know it in so many levels. So I just want to remind us of one of the many beautiful hadith about Ramadan that I love. And that's when the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever observes fasts during the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith and hoping to attain Allah's rewards, then all his past sins will be forgiven. Imanan wa ihtisaban. And what I want to focus on that, it's not about the fact about observing fast, because I said some people can't fast. That's not the point. The point is that imanan wa ihtisaban, that we have this belief and we hope to attain Allah's reward. that hope is what's going to keep us going, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so extremely generous and merciful. And so when we hope for his reward and we just do our best and strive towards that, then there is so much there, we can't even realize the magnitude of Allah's blessings. So just have that hope, always just do your best, try to smile and be positive, and know that you're in very good hands with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take time out in your little worship corner. You can even, women can even make i'tikaf, but that's a separate topic, and just reflect, and if you can read Qur'an, do dhikr, pray, whatever it is, make dua, and you will feel, inshallah, we'll all feel so elevated this Ramadan, and we're going to come out of it like new people, inshallah, and we will look forward to future Ramadans maybe being different, but that doesn't mean that this Ramadan is not going to be beautiful for us, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Diab. Next we'll have Sheikh Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone, for tuning in. This is amazing right now, subhanAllah. Let me tell you, after listening to Dr. Iman Musa and Dr. Diab, I feel like we can call it a day, because I'm so recharged positively by all of the words of wisdom and all the words of inspiration that were shared. Really, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward both of them and bless them. And also we want to thank the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago, as well as the particularity of this task force that's putting this together. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. There are people whose names were not even mentioned that work so hard to make events like this happen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward them immensely, that he illuminates their homes with the light of Islam, and that he allows them to be a beacon of light and hope to everyone around them, inshallah ta'ala. I just want to take some time to congratulate you and I. And that is to congratulate us on being a people who are living through Ramadan. Yani, it's without a doubt, the people that are alive in Ramadan today are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be in this very Ramadan. And that beautiful hadith that Sister Rand or Dr. Rand referred to, in which the doors of Jenna are opened, all of them, and the doors of Hellfire are closed, all of them. There's a particular angel who comes out, and he calls out and he says, Ya baghi al-khayri aqbil, O seeker of good, come forward. So let's all sign up, not to be the best reciter of the Qur'an, not to be on top of the world, but during this Ramadan to be a seeker of goodness. You know, this Ramadan, without doubt, is uniquely different than any other Ramadan that we've ever experienced. But uniqueness of opportunity equals uniqueness of reward in our faith. So the fact that it's such a unique Ramadan only means that the status that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through worshiping him and pleasing him during this month of Ramadan can be equally unique and special. So inna ilam al-bala'i ma'alam al-jaza, right? And so what that means is that the magnitude of the test or the trial that we're going through equates the magnitude of the reward that we get. So it's such a beautiful way of looking at what we are going through right now. A perfect opportunity, inshallah ta'ala, to revisit our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is as if the nature of Ramadan has changed and evolved to look different. Now, instead of us going out to the masjid to find Ramadan, we're bringing Ramadan into our homes and into our hearts. What's beautiful about that is that when we're visiting our faith, we're visiting our faith in a different light. You know, if you think about the very first Ramadan that took place after the Prophet ﷺ did exactly what you and I are being called to do right now, which is to be in contemplation and reflection. The first ayat of the Qur'an that were revealed in Ramadan were revealed when the Prophet ﷺ was alone, refining his soul in the cave, reflecting and connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It wasn't when he was in a huge congregation with people. It wasn't when he was out and about and fighting for this cause and that cause. All of those things are very, very important and things that the Prophet ﷺ was on the front lines for. But it took place when the Prophet ﷺ was alone, withdrawn from everyone else, and focusing, like one of the doctors mentioned, internally on themselves, on himself, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and him being our teacher, we find in that the transformation of Ramadan begins when we focus on transforming us from the very beginning. So here we are today, right? In Ramadan 2020, a Ramadan that's uncharted territories for all of us, and we have that opportunity. So now let's look towards the legacy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to see what are some of the things that we can do. The first thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called us to is gratitude. One of the most important things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called us to is gratitude. And gratitude in our faith is not just a habit, it's a mindset, it's a perspective, it's a lifestyle, right? It is to be able to say I get to instead of I have to. Instead of saying I have to cook for the family, I get to cook for my family this year. Instead of saying I have to pray, I get to pray. Instead of saying I have to fast, I get to fast. Not waiting to lose a blessing before we value it. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us this idea of gratitude. You know, our mother Aisha, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her, she's narrated to have found the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spending the entire night in worship. And when she found him in this state, in the early hours of the morning, she says, "O Prophet of Allah, you worship like this and you've already been forgiven for all of your sins, all of your mistakes." And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he responds, as we all know, shouldn't I then be a grateful servant of Allah? Let this be a Ramadan of gratitude. Firstly, a month of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of the things that He's done for us. Today we're kind of reminded that maybe even when I don't have my drink from Starbucks exactly when I need it, maybe even when I don't have, and as you can tell, that's something that's very personal to me, but even when I don't have all of the luxuries that I'm used to, right? That I still have the things that matter most. I still have the people that I love next to me. I still woke up today, you know. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to have this mindset of gratitude. That when you wake up, what's the first thing that we're taught to say? Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatna wa lam yamut. All praise and thanks is due to Allah who gave us life today, right? And then subhanallah, you go to the washroom, you make dua, you get out of the washroom, Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anil adha, right? Or Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah and thanks is due to Allah who relieved us of all that is harmful, right? And so again and again, we're taught to be thankful. We eat, we're taught to be thankful. We see ourselves in the mirror, right? We're taught to be thankful for how we look and who we are. We go up, you know, and the list goes on and on. But being a people of gratitude, and don't just be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because stemming from being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being grateful to ourselves, right? Being grateful for ourselves, being proud of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has inspired us and guided us to do. Sometimes we feel like when we give gratitude to others, that means that we're discrediting ourselves. And it's actually the opposite that's true. When we're grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're able to recognize the best of what He's given to us and the best of who we are. And the last part of gratitude is obviously being grateful to the people around us. You know, a lot of folks are saying that this is a time that's been particularly challenging for their relationships with their kids, their relationship with their significant others. And without doubt, the more time that we are with each other, the more there are opportunities for there to be a little bit of rift perhaps. But also, this is a time to discover the best of each other. To be like, man, you know, my son is actually has really good adab, or he's very generous, or he's very kind. My daughter is actually wonderfully helpful in this matter, and she's extremely creative and expressive, mashallah. My spouse, who's been absent all the time, now he's at home and he's more helpful with the kids, and vice versa. So recognizing not just the parts of people that really irk us that we're having to deal with more, but also being grateful for the small ways that people are being helpful and supportive at home, and the beautiful characteristics that they're bringing to our home. So gratitude is a huge part of Ramadan, because Ramadan is the month of generosity. And as Dr. Diab mentioned, it's all sorts of generosity, being generous in our character. If we're typically very kind people, being even more kind. If we're typically smiling a lot, smiling even more. If we're typically giving in charity, one of the things that I recommend that we can do, just a practical example, is maybe you typically give $1,000 in the month of Ramadan, divide that over 30 days, sit as a family with your children and your significant other, and say every single day, we are going to give a different amount of money to a different cause. One day we support Helping Hands and their efforts in Yemen. Another day we support, Iman and their wonderful work in the south side of Chicago. Another day we support Khalid Center and all of the great work that they do. Another day we support our local masjid, the Mecca Center, for all of the great programs that they do. Another day we support the council for putting together webinars like this, and so on and so forth. So allowing our generosity to be a family affair and a community affair that is expressive of our gratitude to one another. So be not just having gratitude on the tongue, but having gratitude in action. So gratitude has three places: gratitude in the heart, gratitude on the tongue, and gratitude with our limbs. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us a people of gratitude. The second thing that I want to talk about is being a people of worship. And one of the things that I really want to remind myself and you is sometimes there's this cookie cutter look to what religiosity looks like. There's the Hafiz Bache at home. There's the religious kid in the family who's memorized the Qur'an. There's the auntie that's super spiritual. So religiosity may look like it's an exclusive elitist club. Make no mistake, my sisters and my brothers, if you are in Ramadan today, it is because Allah selected you, because you are enough for Allah and you are enough for Ramadan. So don't feel like you have to be someone other than yourself. You don't need to be someone other than you. You just need to be the best of who you are and make the best of your habit. So be very much, myself and you, inshallah ta'ala, very much acquainted with where we are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes that's difficult. It's difficult because we're not where we want to be with Allah. But the best place to be with Allah is being the one who's seeking to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if your Qur'an recitation is a little choppy, even if your recitation of the Qur'an is something you haven't done in months, maybe even since last Ramadan, beginning where you are today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Qur'an, right? أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Isn't it time for the believers to have their hearts tremble, right, and humbled in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the time. Ramadan is the time, the season of revisiting our relationship with Allah, like revisiting an old friend. And without doubt, Allah is the best friend that we can welcome back into our lives. So like Dr. Lund mentioned, welcoming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into our homes, having a set area, right, in our homes where we can make peace with our spiritual journey and welcome ourselves where we are at. And I want to ask ourselves to have three conversations, right? One conversation between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single day of Ramadan, raising our hands and just talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Talking to Allah, knowing that Allah knows us better than we know ourselves. Talking to Allah, knowing that Allah loves us more than we'll ever love ourselves. Pouring our hearts out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the ups and the downs of life, about the biryani that we burned yesterday, about the impossible things that our children managed to do while they're at home. All of these different things, just talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as it was mentioned, such a therapeutic and beautiful gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has drawn there to be no barriers between you and Him. You don't need to have wudu to make dua. You don't need to wear hijab or even be a hijabi to make dua. You don't need to be giving hundreds and thousands of dollars in charity to make dua. All you have to do to talk to Allah is just that, to talk to Him. Allahu Akbar. You're always good enough to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the second conversation we have to have, and this is a more difficult one, is a conversation with ourselves, right? Talking to ourselves. And I don't mean in a super awkward or creepy way, but rather talking to ourselves in a way where, you know, in Islam, this is a concept that's known as muraqabah, right? Self-accountability, checking in with ourselves. What am I doing wrong and what am I doing right? Not in a way that we're going ahead like Dr. Ron mentioned and beating ourselves up, but rather talking to ourselves in a way that is proactively positive and encouraging us to be better servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and encouraging us to rediscover our potential. You know, a lot of people during this time of COVID-19 are rediscovering their potential. That, you know what, maybe I didn't have time before to learn how to cook. Now I can cook. As you can tell, I'm fasting, right? Maybe before, you know, I didn't know, how, you know, certain crafts or arts that I wanted to engage in. Now I have the time to do that. So rediscovering ourselves, right? And so having that conversation with ourselves. The last conversation that I ask us to have, and this is a very important one, is a conversation where we listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the way that we listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by opening the Qur'an and reading the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that the message of the Qur'an, yes, it was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but wallahi, my dear sisters and brothers, it was revealed for us. That Allah knew that one day, you know, Dr. Rund and Sister Javeria and Brother Irshad and Tariq, they'd open the Qur'an, and that those words of the Qur'an is Allah speaking to us. How many of us have opened our hearts and opened our ears to listening to the message of Allah for us? So that is a conversation that we need to revisit today in this time. Because when everything else is put on hold right now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is front and center. We need to stop, and I'll end with this inshallah ta'ala. We need to stop trying to make this Ramadan look like other Ramadans. Newsflash, this Ramadan is different, and it will be different, and it's okay that it's different, and it's beautiful that it's different. Let's embrace the uniqueness of this Ramadan and allow our response to be unique by these 3 conversations that we need to have. A conversation with Allah in which we talk to Him, a conversation with ourselves, and a conversation in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us through the Qur'an. You couple that with quality family time and friend time through the beautiful means that the 2 doctors spoke about. This Ramadan, my dear brothers and sisters, wallahi, I guarantee you, inshallah, can be the greatest Ramadan of our lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow this to be the greatest Ramadan of our lives, and in a Ramadan that every single day people are freed from the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow myself and you to be those who in this month of Ramadan are freed from the hellfire, written as the people of Jenna. These are things that we can control. These are things that we can make a difference about. And this is the way that we can illuminate the world during a time that looks dark. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah, Sheikh Tariq. That was a beautiful talk. So we're going to just quickly go into the Q&A session. I did just want to mention that the task force has compiled a list of resources, lectures, and webinars supporting the topics covered in the webinar today. And they will be available on ciogc.org's website, as well as we are going to share a link in the chat box of a repository document that's been listed out in tabs. And we will also have the book recommendations that Dr. Diab had mentioned during her talk. So we're gonna go ahead and go into the Q&A session. Sister Hiba is going to be leading that.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair again for the speakers for the very insightful conversation. I feel very spiritually uplifted right now, alhamdulillah. I know Dr. Musa did mention that she might have to hop off real quickly. So I'm going to get started with some questions that our panel has put together. If you have any other questions, please go ahead and put it in the chat box, and inshallah I'll get to it. So the first question that I think I want to touch upon is directed more towards Dr. Musa. It is, so if I'm not ready to start therapy, what steps can I take to get more comfortable with it?
Sure. So, you know, I know a lot of people are unsure about what therapy is and what it's like. There's a lot of stigma around it. What I usually recommend is if you feel comfortable setting up that first appointment, at Khalil Center, or even giving us a call. A lot of therapists are willing to just answer questions about what therapy might be like for you, what it might look like. And so I certainly recommend to kind of go into the session, ask your questions, ask what concerns that you have. And I know today I was talking a lot about how a lot of the emotions we're feeling are normal, but sometimes it can escalate from just feeling anxious and stressed to starting to see that those emotions are really impacting how you're functioning. So if you do find that, yeah, I'm worried and it's getting hard for me to control these worries, or, it's getting hard for me to go about my tasks. I don't really enjoy the things I used to do. I used to like spending time with my family. I used to like seeing my friends, and now I'm feeling really withdrawn from that. These are signs that you may need, some extra help and support. And so I really recommend reaching out to talking to your doctor. That's another thing. Like if you have a good relationship with even your primary care doctor, letting them know how you feel, they may have some resources to connect you. So it really starts with taking that step to ask for help and, advocating for yourself about the worries that you have, because I know, in a lot of our cultures, we're not used to therapy and it's not normalized. So maybe making a list of the questions that you have so you can ask, how could this help me? How does therapy help people to get some of those questions addressed?
Great response, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Musa. So this next question, it can be for any of the panelists who took part today. The question is, how can I incorporate mindfulness into my prayers?
I'll speak a little bit on that. Having had experience with working with converts, one of the things I've learned from them, and I learned many things from them, but one of the things is that they have to work very hard in prayer. Oftentimes they're learning prayer, it's new. Learning the Arabic words of the Fatiha, of the different parts of prayer, is very challenging. Many of them learn the meanings first and they try to reflect on those meanings while they're saying the words. So one of the things that can help us in prayer is reflecting on the meanings, but also learning some Qur'an and using that in our prayers. So when you have recently memorized a portion of Qur'an, you're going to be very focused during that prayer when you're trying to say it. You're not going to be able to let your mind wander like you do when you say Qul huwallahu ahad, or something that you've been saying maybe throughout your whole life. So try to learn new portions of Qur'an. Remember that you can learn just one ayah, you can learn just 2 or 3 ayahs. It doesn't have to be a lot. And bring that into your prayer. So today I'm going to learn 1 or 2 new ayahs and I'm going to pray with them in my Fuddled Prayers. And that will really help you to focus and concentrate. If you can also do that and study the meanings as well, then that's going to add an extra layer. So I think that's one good way. And the other thing you can do is, outside of the ritual Salah, you can practice meditation, meditative techniques, and you can learn those all over. That's available. It's so popular now in mainstream Western culture. But if you do that, then you can bring some of those strategies into your prayer, which basically it's like learning to just focus on where you are, and when a thought comes, you can acknowledge it, but you let it go. And just that process, think of concentration and focus as exercise. Just like you would exercise a muscle, you exercise the muscle of concentration. So you learn to let the thought go and to go back to what you were focusing on. So we can practice those techniques outside of Salah and then try to bring them in as well.
Great, thank you so much. Any other panelists want to touch upon this question?
I think that was an excellent response. I'll just add as well, just like Dr. Diab was talking about in her talk, just being in the present. A lot of times we squeeze our Salah in between tasks. And so I recommend taking time, even if it's just a minute before you start Salah, to say, these next 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, I just need to focus on my prayer. And all of these other things that are on my mind, they can wait till afterward, so that we are practicing, again, just like all of that will be okay. Right now I need to be in my prayer. And that might mean taking a minute to take a few deep breaths. That is a way, a practice of meditation to kind of clear your thoughts, focus inward, and just focus on the intention of prayer.
Jazakallah khair. All right, so the next question we have is actually directed toward Sheikh Tariq. So the question from the Q&A box is, Sheikh, can you please speak on Tarawih and Salah at home? Understood that we cannot attend prayer at the masjids. For those that are married with no children, can we benefit from congregation with our wives?
Absolutely. Oh my God, you can benefit so greatly from congregation with the spouses at home and with the kids. I actually think that, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in an authentic hadith, do not allow your homes to be like cemeteries or like graveyards. And so the actual idea there is that the graveyard is a place where prayer does not take place because the people there have passed away. And subhanAllah shows us that the only place where prayer shouldn't be happening is with those who are no longer alive. Every other place, inshallah ta'ala, that meets the fiqh requirements should be a place of prayer. And so our home needs to be front and center of where prayer takes place. And congregational prayer is such an intimate thing that can be shared between a family that's beautiful and humbling and connecting. It's definitely something that is meant to be encouraged in our faith. And it's something that can be extremely rewarding, something that we can bond over, something that you can, you know, the father, you know, the son makes adhan, the father leads the prayer, the mother gives the khatira, or she prepares it with the daughter. Such a beautiful experience together that the family can do, inshallah ta'ala, that can, again, bring us all closer to each other and also bring us closer to Allah together. A lot of times we think we have to bond over like vacations and going on a cruise together. You can bond sitting at home praying together, inshallah. It doesn't require, you know, putting all of that time and energy and financial investment into it. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ was narrated to have done and particularly mentioned in the month of Ramadan, that he would wake up his family members to pray with him. He would wake up his family members to pray with him. And this is something we need to work on. It might be new for us and new to our homes, but waking each other up, reminding each other and coming to prayer. And also making, if I can just say this, making the prayer a safe space. Not a point where everybody's like, oh, you know, did I do this right? Or did I do this wrong? Or if I mess up, then everybody's gonna, you know, I'm gonna be the laughing stock of the family for the next year. No, making it a safe space where we're all growing together. We're proud of each other's accomplishments, each other's growth, breaking that like ice that might be there between us. So definitely be allowing that to happen, inshallah ta'ala, at home is something super important.
Inshallah. And I think one last question that I just got is, can we pay Tarawih with the Qur'an open in front of us if we don't have that many surahs memorized?
So that's definitely, first of all, you're welcome to repeat the chapters of the Qur'an that you know. And one thing that was mentioned earlier that I thought was so beautiful, it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to revisit it and know it more, or to know it deeper, or to know it from a different angle. You can recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad every single day and it benefit you in a different way every single day, right? Of course, we also need to expand our knowledge, but it's also okay to revisit things and the lessons that they have for us in our lives. But with regards to the particularity of this question, the majority of scholars do say that it is permissible to hold the Qur'an in a non-obligatory prayer. So in Taraweeh prayer, for example, to hold the Qur'an and read from there, that's something that is permissible, inshallah ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. According to the majority of scholars, that's something that you can do. And even you don't have to read like Sudais and finish the whole Qur'an. Read at your own pace, read however much is good for you and your family, enjoy the recitation, and take it from there, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. And just being mindful of, sorry about that. You can go ahead.
A small practical tip as well is that if you can prop it up, the Qur'an or the Mus'haf on a stand is another way if you're not able to hold it. I've found I have a really nice Qur'an stand, but I've also used music stands. I found a way to prop it up on a chair. And for many of the converts that I work with, we consulted with Sheikh Hassan Ali from the Mecca Center, and he said for the converts, they could also even prop up a transliteration to to glance at that during their Tarawih prayers for some of the new surahs that they're learning as well. So it's really a great time for all of us to practice reciting a new Qur'an in our Salah. And I would recommend, like this year we have, mashallah, my son is leading us, and I've been recommending to him, read over the pages during the day so that you're ready, at the time, so it's a little bit easier for you as well. And like Sheikh Tariq said, we're making it a safe space for him. So it's like, even though some of the stuff may be hard, and he may make mistakes, we're all really enjoying that opportunity to do that together.
Dr. Lund, he's very excited to be leading the Salah. Like every week when I talk to him, he's like, I'm leading Tarawih at home. Make dua, do a good job. So I think
good job, mashallah. And it's nice right now because we're just finishing Surah Al-Baqarah, and those are the surahs that I still know at the beginning of the Quran, so I can correct him. So as we get later, and I'll have to hold something in my hand so that I can help him out. Alhamdulillah.
Nice. Alhamdulillah.
Dr. Rami, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give blessings to your son for leading Tarawih this year. That's a really big accomplishment. So just being mindful of time, we're going to wrap up the Q&A and just, have some final closing remarks for today's webinar.
Can I ask a question before we finish the Q&A to all the panelists? Thank you so much, Jazakumullah khair, for this great webinar, for your pearls of wisdom. Jazakumullah khair, this is very informative. What advice do you guys can you give to those of us regarding screen time for adults, screen time for children? We are at home. It's could be stressful at times, and some people think this is a time to let go of the structure, spend as much time as you want, watching different things on WhatsApp, playing video games, and so forth. Any advice can you give to that effect?
I'll just give some quick words. So all of our therapy has switched to online. So I've been spending a lot of time in front of the screen too. And what I do is just to make sure when I don't have to be in front of a screen to take some time away from it. I know sometimes we're often checking our phones and doing all of that, but putting that away. And like I said, if you can get outside, if you can, of course it's Ramadan, spend time reading Qur'an, reading other books. There might be ways to listen to a lecture rather than viewing something all the time. So I really recommend try to take some time from it, because it does get tiring, and it is important to take a break. So just trying to take breaks as much as you can.
And also maybe try to do something non-screen related together, like play a board game. And as she said, going outside, like I've always really emphasized that to my kids. As an ophthalmologist, many of our studies show that when children who go outside more are less likely to develop nearsightedness, whereas children who do more near work, even if it's reading, homework, or screen time, will become more nearsighted. So I've always told my kids, you have to take a break and go outside from whatever you're doing. And alhamdulillah, during the quarantine, we can still go outdoors, and take a walk or go in our yards. So I think that's so important, even if it's just little short spurts throughout the day.
Very good, Jazakumullah khair.
So just some final reminders and closing remarks. Since we are the Health Information Committee from CIOGC, that just remind we're in the midst of a pandemic. So depending on what state you're from, just to remind yourselves to please just abide by the rules and regulations that have been in place. In Illinois, our stay-at-home order is still until May 30th. So please try to maintain physical distancing, staying 6 feet apart. Starting May 1st in Illinois, you're going to be having to wear a face covering when you're outside if you cannot maintain that 6 feet distance. And just as a reminder, as a nurse, please wash your hands. I can't express that enough. Just wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. That's the best way to protect ourselves. Clean hands really do save lives. And in closing, one last thing is we want to submit a community survey for you all. We really like to put on these webinars, but you want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that we're addressing your needs. So I'm putting it in the chat box, so please don't hesitate to fill it out the Google form. And inshallah, our COVID-19 Health Fund Committee will take these answers and we'll try to tailor future information and webinars with your opinion in mind, inshallah.
Dr. Eldarawi, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I want to take, I don't know if I'm muted, if I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists, Jazakumullah khair, for taking the time to share this invaluable information with our community. And I want to emphasize the fact that this is this effort is part of a continuous effort to address the needs of the community during this COVID-19 pandemic. If you have any suggestions for any other webinars, any other resources you need, please feel free to reach out and we will try our best to accommodate the needs of the community. Again, I want to thank you, Jazakumullah khair. I want to turn the mic to the chairman of CIUGC for a few remarks. Brother Irshad, are you on?
I'm on. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Ramadan Kareem to all of you. This is our first webinar into Ramadan, and I want to make a short dua that may Allah bless this month of Ramadan with quality. May He accept our prayers. May He accept our fasting, and may He accept our charity. And I also want to thank Allah for giving us this opportunity, for being closer to each other, even though we have a social distance. But alhamdulillah, this is also in a blessing from Allah that we are together in our faith. I mean, we are apart, but our spirits are together. So with that, I want to thank our chair for COVID-19 Task Force, Brother Kamal, for hosting this webinar. And I also want to thank Sister Javeria and Hiba for moderating. And these are the people who are working tirelessly behind the scene for making this happen. This webinar was very enlightening personally for me, especially the topics and the panelists that we have. This is very inspiring for me to hear from Dr. Diab on how she has put together the inspiration from Ramadan and how we can utilize that inspiration continuing in the month of Ramadan. And also I want to thank Dr. Iman for sharing how, even though we have a physical distance, but how the social distance, that how we need to stay connected. And also my friend, Imam Tariq, mashallah, the seekers of goodness in the month of Ramadan, some things that he highlighted was very enlightening for me personally. And I really want to thank everyone who was part of this, as a panelist, and also the attendees. And I'm sure this is something that you are taking away as inspirational for you to continue to build this spirituality in this month of Ramadan. So I want to thank you all for joining, and we have a good participation today, even though I know the time might be too early for people waking up, especially on the weekends, but alhamdulillah, we had a good participation and good. Just want to remind, all this information resides on the CIGC.org website under COVID-19. So if you do want to get the part of this presentation and also the video, that will be available, inshallah, to all of you. And the resource material that Javeria talked about, those are also available on CIGC.org. CIGC is making an attempt to continue to offer these services to our community in Chicagoland area. As you have seen that we have been hosting these webinars, which is very relevant for the times that we are in. And this is a continuation of those webinars. Next Sunday, we're going to be having a webinar with our helpline partners who are fighting on behalf of us on this front line. So we want to have a webinar with them. We're going to learn from them. And then also we're going to share with our community what are the guidelines that they are proposing in terms of social distancing in the month of Ramadan and also beyond that. And then also we are continuing our efforts to offer some Quranic guidance. If you, I'm sure you have already seen it, but if you haven't, the CIGC.live every day at 7 p.m., 7 to 7:45, we have all the local imams from our Chicagoland area Sheikh Hassan Ali was on yesterday. Sheikh Kifa was on the day before. And all our imams of Chicagoland are coming in and giving their Quranic guidance from the surahs that they're doing a tafsir of. So I highly encourage everyone that have not joined the CIGC.live. This is a YouTube channel and also the Facebook Live. This is for you. This is for your benefit in the month of Ramadan. The CIGC is making an attempt to bring these services for you. So with that, I want to thank you again for joining, and Jazakallah khair for all the panelists for their enlightening and inspirational talk today. And with that, I want to close it out and turn it over to Brother Abdullah Mitchell.
Can I just say a couple of words? I want to also thank the team that Javeria and Hiba are working with. We have a very dedicated team working behind the scene, meeting continuously, trying to bring the best webinars to our community. So thank you to everybody. Jazakumullah khair.
With those closing remarks, inshallah, we once again thank you for joining us this morning. Please refer to our website to stay abreast of the webinars we're offering. And once again, I would underscore Arshad Khan's recommendation to you to tune in at 7 p.m. to see some of the gifted and scholarly imams in the local community. I mean, the Sheikh Tariq Musa is one example of what you can experience, inshallah, on a daily basis to get an understanding the depth and breadth of the knowledge that's available to us as Muslims in the greater Chicago community. So with that, we will close, inshallah. May you have a blessed Ramadan, and Allah keep you safe during these uncertain times. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair.